What's up, Vikings Nation? Lock in right now because this story hit overnight and it has the entire Minnesota Vikings fan base talking. This is one of those moments where football, headlines, and real life collide fast. Before you scroll away, hear me out, because this situation is deeper than a headline and louder than a rumor. There's context, there's history, and there are real consequences tied to what happens next. And trust me, by the end of this breakdown, you're going to have a clear opinion on what this means for the Vikings, for the locker room, and for Jordan Addison's future in purple. Late Monday night into early Tuesday morning, news broke out of Tampa, Florida that immediately raised eyebrows across the NFL world. Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison was arrested for probable cause trespassing. According to the incident report, this wasn't about violence, it wasn't about drugs, and it wasn't about a bar fight. It was about a refusal to leave a location after multiple requests from staff. But as always, with NFL players and legal reports, the details matter, and the full story adds layers that can't be ignored. The report states that Addison was inside the Jubao Palace Noodle Bar at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Staff allegedly asked him multiple times to leave the restaurant. Police say Addison refused those requests, and the situation escalated from there. Eventually, law enforcement was called to intervene. At approximately 3:46 a.m. local time, Jordan Addison was arrested for probable cause trespassing, a charge that immediately spread across social media. One detail from the police report stood out to a lot of fans reading it closely. Officers noted that while Addison was being escorted out of the building, he repeatedly had to be redirected toward the front exit. That line alone fueled speculation online, with fans debating whether this was simple confusion, frustration, or something being blown out of proportion. And this is where perspective becomes important, because police language can sound dramatic even in relatively minor situations. Addison was officially booked into the Hillsborough County Jail at 7:33 a.m. local time. Just hours later, he posted a $500 cash bond. By 2:40 p.m. the same day, he was released. No prolonged detention, no additional charges announced at that time. From a legal standpoint, the timeline suggests a relatively minor incident, but headlines don't always care about nuance. Shortly after the news broke, Addison's legal team responded publicly, and their statement changed the tone of the conversation entirely. They indicated that Jordan Addison may have been the victim of a false arrest, and that they are confident he will be fully exonerated. According to his attorneys, they've already begun investigating the situation, identifying witnesses, and reviewing the viability of a false arrest claim. That response matters, because it tells us this isn't a case where the player is quietly accepting fault. This is a situation that could turn legally in a different direction. Addison's representatives made it clear they expect the legal process to clear his name. They expressed confidence that once all facts are reviewed, the case will not hold up. That doesn't mean the process disappears overnight, but it does mean this story is far from finished. And now Vikings fans are left asking the same question. How does this affect the team moving forward? This arrest marks Jordan Addison's third off-the-field legal issue since being drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in 2023. That's the part that complicates everything. Back in July 2023, Addison pleaded guilty after being cited for driving 140 miles per hour on a Twin Cities freeway. That alone raised early concerns. Then in June 2024, he was arrested on suspicion of DUI in Los Angeles, later pleading no contest to a lesser charge. Patterns matter in the NFL, especially when teams are evaluating long-term investments. Because of those prior incidents, the Vikings already had reason to monitor Addison closely. And it hasn't just been legal trouble. During the 2024 season, Addison was benched for the first quarter of Minnesota's Week 5 game in London after missing a team walkthrough. That decision was a clear message from the coaching staff. Accountability matters, regardless of talent. And while Addison has delivered on the field, those moments off it are stacking up. Now here's where things get really interesting for the Minnesota Vikings front office. Jordan Addison is eligible for a contract extension this offseason. At the same time, wide receiver Jalen Nailor is entering free agency. The Vikings can't pay everyone. When you factor in Justin Jefferson's massive contract, the math gets tight very quickly. Justin Jefferson is set to carry a cap hit close to $39 million next season, which is roughly 12.5% of the entire salary cap. That number forces tough decisions. It means every additional dollar at wide receiver must be justified. And that's where off-the-field reliability becomes part of the evaluation, whether fans like it or not. General Manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah addressed the situation publicly, and his comments were honest, thoughtful, and revealing. He described Addison as intelligent, confident, and a joy to be around on most days. But then he said something that stuck with a lot of fans. What matters is how someone behaves on those 1% days. Kwesi made it clear that long-term contracts require long-term trust. He openly acknowledged that decisions about Addison's future, potential extensions, and even the possibility of letting someone like Jalen Nailor walk are all connected. This isn't about talent alone. It's about risk management. And that's the reality of the modern NFL, especially for a team trying to build sustained success. Jordan Addison is scheduled to appear in court on February 3rd. Until then, everything remains under evaluation. The legal process will determine whether this arrest stands or is dismissed entirely. But regardless of the outcome, the Vikings will be watching closely, weighing every factor behind closed doors. So now I want to hear from you, Vikings fans. How do you feel about this situation? Do you believe Jordan Addison deserves a long-term extension despite the off-the-field concerns? Or should the Vikings protect themselves financially? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is far from over. This story isn't just about one arrest. It's about trust, maturity, and the future of the Minnesota Vikings offense. It's about how a young star handles adversity and accountability. And it's about how a franchise balances talent with responsibility. We'll continue to follow every update, every legal development, and every front office reaction. If new information comes out, you'll hear it here first. Because this is Minnesota Vikings news, and we break it down with honesty and passion. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button so more Vikings fans can find this video. Make sure to subscribe for daily Vikings updates, rumors, and breaking news. And share this with a fellow fan, because this offseason is already heating up fast.